we are very blessed and honored to have Catherine Austin Fitz with us. Hello and welcome, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's delightful to be with you today.
Absolutely. I was going to go into some of your accreditations, but that would take the entire show. President of Solari Incorporated. You are the publisher of the Solari Report. Once upon a time, Catherine, of course, worked with the Bush administration. So it's housing and urban development. You've done a lot. You speak a lot about financials and such. And we're kind of drawn in. We're in a crunch where we've gotten to this movement. You know, as a broadcaster and a consumer, I love the digital world. It's great, but it has spoiled us and it has kind of made a mess.
Right.
It's easy to swipe and go.
Right.
Pay bills online.
Right.
But we need to get away from that.
Yeah.
What have we done? What's going on?
So the way I would say it is the healthiest kind of financial system is both digital and analog. Digital offers a lot of convenience and speed and low cost. So you like bringing your transaction costs down. At the same time, we want to have freedom. And freedom requires financial freedom, freedom to transact. And that requires analog, because analog can keep things secret, it can keep things private, and it can keep things free. So we're a big proponent of using cash. You know, you come to a website, it says use cash every day. We have these caps, it says make cash great again. And that's because we want to balance the convenience and the low-cost transactions with the benefit of freedom and privacy and you know, sort of private liquidity. So that's, you know, what I tell everybody is that we've got a couple wars going on right now. One war is you have a group of people who are trying to centralize everything. And they're fighting with those of us who want freedom. So there's this fight between the centralizers and the decentralizers. There's a second fight going on, and that is if you look at all the centralizers, they're fighting for turf. Because as the turf changes, you know, everybody's fighting for the musical chairs. And so things can look quite chaotic, but at the root of it, it's simple. And I think for us on the decentralization team, the question before us is how do we make sure that we don't let them centralize all power, because then we're going into a system that is far worse than anything we've ever seen.
Oh my, wow. So we've gone so far, and unless we stand up and I guess go old school and use cash.
Well, here's the thing. The first thing we have to do is face it. You know, so I used to have a wonderful preacher who'd say, if we can face it, God can fix it. And it can be overwhelming to face what's happening and where the centralization is going. So if you listen to what the central bankers are saying they want to do, when you listen to them, it's like, oh my. It's hard if you've grown up in the United States to fathom how, you know, that somebody would want to do this. So, but the first is you have to face it and get out of overwhelm about it. Then you have to start to take action. And the first thing you can do is you can start to build up first of all, the analog system. So as you said, use cash. But start to look at all of your different relationships. Who's your bank? Where do you buy your food? Where do you purchase goods and services? And say, how can I shift my time, my attention, my resources, my investments, and start to build up those things in my analog world, whether it's my farmer, my banker, who I know, and I know to be people of integrity and people of competence that I can trust. How do I get back to resiliency? But resiliency comes not from, you know, having lots of freeze-dried food. It comes from having people in your life who you know and you can trust. I have one of my favorite fiction authors says, your family are the people who won't turn you in. But that's, it all comes down to, you know, people and the institutions that people build. So I love to get things as local as possible. Not everything should be local, because, you know, people far away can do things better, you know, than we can do. But what I found, especially in Tennessee, you know, there is so much great local food and so much great local banking going on in this state. So there's a lot you can do. So that's number one. The second thing you can do is to, and this is something I've spent a lot of time on in my life, you want to be very careful about what kind of federal money you bring in. because federal money comes with terms and conditions. I
Yes.
don't know if you've ever, we just got a grant in my county, and I insisted that the mayor give me a copy
Yes.
of the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
One of the most frightening things I've
Yeah.
ever read.
800 pages?
No, it was only about 135 pages, but it was small type. And if you look at the terms and conditions that were slapped on,
Yeah.
we shouldn't have taken that
Right,
money.
right.
So let me give you another example. Have you ever heard of an organization called Strong Towns?
No.
Okay. Strong Towns was started by a municipal engineer named Chuck Marone.
Okay.
And Chuck kept warning his clients, look, when you take on this grant, you're going to have to maintain it after you build it. And the maintenance is going to be expensive. Do you understand what you're taking? You know, everybody's getting upfront fees and they're happy for the construction, but you got to be careful.
Right.
So finally, a council person in Lafayette, Louisiana, hired him to come in because they were going to take on a big water and sewer infrastructure project that the feds were going to finance. And he came in and he did an analysis of all of Lafayette, Louisiana.
Yeah.
And what he said was as follows. He said, let's assume you don't take this grant, but you just maintain everything you've built at, sort of basic life cycle,
Sure.
good engineering best practices. He said, what you would have to do that is you would have to raise the property taxes in Lafayette from an average of $1,500 a home to $8,500 a home.
Oh, my.
He said, and if you don't want to raise property taxes, you're just going to have to let a whole bunch of this stuff go. And what Chuck says is Detroit is only first. They had to let go, but it's coming everywhere.
Yeah.
So what you've seen is we've put ourselves on a treadmill that's very dependent on money
Yes.
that's been coming from, if you look at where it's coming from, the central bankers are just printing it. And that's part of what's causing inflation that we're all struggling with. So you want to be very careful on the finances to understand that you want to run a budget, not just an operations expenditure budget, but a capital budget that's smart, not just up front, but down the road.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the things I did in the 90s, the way I got onto this sort of war between centralization and decentralization, was I started building database. I built a software tool called Community Wizard that would allow you as council, it was really designed for the local government officials and local business people, to go in and map out the sources and uses of federal government money and credit within a community. Because what we were finding was we would go into communities at HUD where we were spending $250,000 per unit to build a rehab public housing, but $50,000 would buy and rehab a single family home in the FHA foreclosed property. And I would literally I took a map of this. We found it in Los Angeles, Chicago, and New Orleans. And I took the maps to the person who was running the public housing program, and I said, look, we could get 4 or 5 homes for the price of one. So if you take this community and here's the public housing and here's the foreclosed property, if we just move the money, we could get 4 or 5 homes.
Great.
And she looked at me, she got very angry. I took it to the assistant of the person who ran the program. She got very angry at me. She said, but how would we generate fees for our friends?
Oh, no.
Now, here's the interesting thing. If you're a group of local officials and business people, and you have the map that shows how the money works,
Sure.
you're going to see, on Wall Street, we call that an arbitrage. You're going to see all the opportunities. So I'll give you another one. So I started a data servicing company. The Clinton administration was, after I left serving as assistant secretary, I started a company that was the lead financial, we won a contract to be lead financial advisor to HUD. And we started a data servicing company. We had huge data servicing needs.
Yeah.
And we went to Asia to look at outsourcing them to Asia. And what we found out, it was cheaper to outsource the database development to Asia, but to keep the data servicing in the United States. And what we did was we started a data servicing center in a low-income community and told the workforce there, we will train you to do data servicing, and you can come, we will guarantee a year's contract to a company we start. If it works, we'll renew the contract. If it doesn't, we won't.
Right.
And what we discovered was we could take, you had a whole group of people who were on welfare and HUD subsidies for their housing.
Yes.
Who couldn't go downtown to work. They were caregivers for grandparents,
Sure.
they were caregivers
Yeah.
for kids. They were really not able to commute, but they could commute remotely. I mean, they could
Yeah.
work remotely. But not only that, within 6 months, we could teach them how to be a phenomenally productive
Wonderful.
person doing data servicing.
Right.
All they needed was flexible hours. They needed to be able to, you know, if there's an emergency, they need to just
Yeah.
leave their computer, go upstairs,
Yeah.
do something, come back. Anyway, so we had this phenomenally productive workforce. They loved their jobs. They were great at it. It was
Great
very
program.
successful. But what we discovered was, if you look at what it cost us to teach them to become a taxpayer in 6 months,
Right.
if they didn't become a taxpayer, the federal government was paying, I'm trying to remember, if you added in the full cost of the welfare, the housing, and whatever, was phenomenal.
Exactly.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And yet, when we proposed doing this, getting them to, you know, to essentially learn how to do the data servicing,
Yeah.
we ruffled 5 million feathers, because you have no idea how many companies and constituencies were making money.
Skimming off the top.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was the same problem as the
Wow.
housing.
Wow.
But what I will tell you is, if you know, I haven't mapped out, I call it mapping out the financial ecosystem. I haven't mapped out Shelbyville, but any time during that period that I mapped out a community like Shelbyville, what I found is, so I'll use Hardman County because you're wealthier than where I live, but if we're making $24,000 a year on average, we're paying taxes, federal taxes, and those taxes are paying some contractor $125 an hour
Yep.
in Washington, you know, outsourced to Washington to do something we could do in Hardeman County, including for ourselves.
Sure.
So this is really funny, you're gonna love this story. During the financial crisis, there was a woman in Florida who was eager to work, but she couldn't find a job. And finally, she was forced to go on food stamps. And I think she had unemployment and food stamps. And one day she had a problem with her food stamps. So she called whatever the tech support, the customer service line is. She got some woman working for JP Morgan Chase in India,
Wow.
doing a job she would love to do.
Sure.
And she said, wait a minute, if I could do this job, we wouldn't need to pay for my food stamps, right?
Right.
She said, this is nuts. It's economically, it makes no sense to
Yeah.
pay me not to work while we're outsourcing a job to
Right.
somebody, and this guy in the middle is getting a big
Exactly.
markup. Anyway,
Yeah.
so what you'll find when you start to map out the money in a place, and you look not just at the appropriations and spending, you look at the terms and conditions,
Sure.
you look at the credit, and the liability creates over time. If you look at all these different things, what you'll discover is there are ways to re-engineer within a place in terms of the federal resources. I'm not talking about state or local. And what we found was, I literally, for some of these opportunities, I used to call them federal arbitrage, I would have to go to Congress and get a law passed so that I could move money from this block in a neighborhood across the street to the next block. It was set up so you couldn't do that.
Right.
The time is coming, given what's happening in the federal budget,
Yes.
when if you have a local community coming in and saying, we want to re-engineer, you know, we're going to be able to do that. I once met with the secretary, and during the Clinton administration, I met with Cincinnatus, and he had a guy named George Latimer, who'd been mayor of St. Paul, who was fantastic.
Okay.
And I met with George and I said, look, what every local community wants is a waiver. They bring in 100 pages of rules that they're subject to, and you just give them a jumbo waiver. You don't have to give them a dime, so it won't cost you anything on the budget. But if you just relieve them of all these different rules,
Sure.
it will be a huge boon for their economy.
It would.
And George and I worked on it, and it came back to me and he said, I can't get it done, it's too boring, it won't be a good headline.
It's all about the headline. Yeah. So we've gone down this cycle. How fast are we moving when it comes
Very
to
fast.
very fast?
Very fast.
So we've got to get a grip on it. We've got to get into believing what's really happening.
Right, and it's hard for people to fathom. I have an article at solari.com, my website, called "I Want to Stop CBDCs, What Can I Do?"
Okay.
And it's a list of things we can do to slow down or stop the centralization. But in number 11 is bring transparency. And in there are 6 videos, most of which are very short, which will show you how bad this is.
Oh my.
So we have the top central banker, head of the BIS, saying we can make the rules centrally and we can enforce them centrally.
Yes.
So imagine having your money frozen by somebody in Switzerland.
Yeah.
So it's, you see when you watch those videos, you see how fast it's moving. Now, what do we want? We need to provide for financial transaction freedom here in Tennessee. The best solutions are ones that the state legislature and the city council support, because then you have sovereign government support. So, of course, individuals can do a lot of things, but if you have a sovereign government doing everything they can to protect that transaction freedom, because literally you want the state, the counties, the towns, the citizens, and the community banks to be able to transact within Tennessee without the federal government, neither the central bank or the Treasury, being able to interfere.
Who are the naysayers, those individuals that won't join the side of the city council and others who are trying to push back on all of this?
So it's interesting. I think most of, Tennessee, because I used to work in municipal finance across the country, Tennessee, in my experience, has a very high caliber person who works in government.
Okay.
In Tennessee, it's an honorable profession to work in government. When I was in New York, it wasn't considered an honorable. Chicago is not considered honorable, but here it's considered honorable. You get a very high quality person. I think the people in Tennessee know, they're watching what's going on in the world, and they know our ability to transact can be interfered with by the federal government, like the Tennessee truckers. It can be interfered with by the electricity. We just had the governor of the Bank of New Zealand stand up after the cyclone and say, thank God for cash. If it hadn't been for cash, we would have been right. And I turned to my partner, I said, he clearly hasn't gotten the memo yet. But you see, remember that big, when the power went down in Kentucky for like 3 weeks? Imagine what that was like if you didn't have cash. So they know it could be the electricity, but they also know, if you look at what's happening, one of the many reasons for our financial blessings is the dollar's function as reserve currency. As we are diminishing our market share as reserve currency, it's truly diminishing. As it diminishes, that subsidy goes away. And I think everybody's looking down the road and saying, the day that subsidy goes away is the reason they want this kind of control. Because when they can't deliver the subsidy, the only way to keep control is with financial repression. And that's when, if the state and the local banks and the counties and the citizens have alternatives at least to transact internal to Tennessee, then our political leverage will be significantly greater. If we have. So then the question is, I think for many people, they're thinking, well, that's 10 years down the road. No, that's right now.
It's now.
It's now. And you've got to turn the ship before you're 5 minutes from the iceberg.
Absolutely.
You got to turn it way ahead of time. So now is the time to start talking about this. Now, I think that one of the things I love about Tennessee is, I don't know if you have it in Shelbyville, where I go, everybody's been through the leadership program. And because of the leadership program, a Rotary or Chamber or many of these different things, there's a lot of connection between people. So there's connection between the city council and the bankers and the state officials and,
industry.
So I think the first thing is, it's very important that the different groups involved in financial transactions work together to create the solutions. So, we just published a memo why a sovereign state bank would be good for Tennessee, but when I've met with the leadership here, I've said, look, that's just one idea. What's important is that you have transaction freedom. There are lots of different ways to get that. Now, I love the idea of the state having its own bank so that it controls, there's no bank that can freeze it like they froze the truckers, okay?
Right.
So I don't like the idea of an out-of-state bank being able to freeze the Tennessee state government or pressure it in any way.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of having a state sovereign bank, but there are other ways to do it. It's, and what's important is they create transaction freedom. So I think the first thing you got to do is you got to get all the different people who are dealing with financial transactions, and that certainly includes the taxes and the expenditure thereof, so it includes all the governments. And you talk about, okay, how can we do this? And how can we do this so that it protects against, the central banks rolling out a CBDC, or other sanction controls through the Fed wire or any of these digital systems. So one is financial, we'll just call that financial repression. How do we protect against that? But how do we protect against the electricity problems? How do we protect against losing the reserve currency status if that should happen?
Right.
And of course, what you're looking to do is, one, create options, financial train track options that are independent within the state of Tennessee. So that's step one. But step two, you want to look at how can we create more resiliency? If that subsidy is going away, or if the dollars we get federally are diminishing or going away, or inflation, eats us alive. Because for them to keep printing under these circumstances, enormous
Something's
inflation.
wrong. Something's not right.
Well, you're gonna get tremendous inflationary pressures. For all these different reasons, we need more local resiliency. Okay, how do we do that? Now, one of the things I think after financial transaction freedom is most important is food.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Tennessee has beautiful farmland and great, great food.
True.
But what you'll discover is, if you look at health and nutrition, there's no, this notion that you can do it cheaper in Asia is, your local food is always going to be your best food.
Yeah.
It's the closest to the, it's most nutritious. You can, you pick it right there. Anyway, so anything you can do to build up local food and local food independence, because there's a lot of effort on the regulatory and legal side to control. I just got off the phone. The host of our food series is Pete Kennedy. He was the founder, one of the founders of the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. I don't know if they basically run around the country and protect small farmers from regulators.
Right. Need it.
What? Yeah. Anyway, but he said, we have a real effort in Europe and the United States to kill off the bird flocks for bird flu in a way which we think is very political. So, but that's a situation where if you set up your own regulatory structure, working together with the state and local, you can protect against those things.
Yes.
Anyway, so you can create the conditions where farmers can be economic. So, for example, there's been a big effort to make sure people can slaughter up to 20,000 chickens on their farm, or, get mobile meat processing or other things to make it so that a family can really make an economic go of farming. So part of it is local food, but part of it is making local food very, very economic.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Local is the key when it comes to banking or local shops and such. Main Street, not necessarily going to Wall Street. Things of that nature, it can really make a difference, and it could possibly slow down
So
the
let
cycle.
let me mention a couple of, and be careful because I could talk about this all day, but the number one investment that any American community makes, the number one investment, in my opinion, guess what it is?
I don't know.
Our kids.
Okay.
We raise our kids, we educate them, we try and make sure they're strong and healthy, and then they leave and go work for our competitors.
Yeah.
Right. So anything you can do with with the high schools and the community colleges, the colleges, and the business community. You know, we have a tremendous number of small businesses where the leadership is going to retire.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't take it over,
What happens?
you're going to lose it, and you're going to lose a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
The next 5-10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anything you can do to create the pathway where kids can get involved in the local business and either buy a business, take over a business, or if you can get angel networks going that will finance them in starting businesses. It's a tremendous opportunity, but it takes coordination between the educational groups, the business groups, and some of the money folks.
Yeah.
And there's tremendous opportunity because new technology should help the little guy much more than the big guy. But, you know, that takes a certain kind of working together. I know Tennessee has technology centers. I don't know if one is near.
We've got a beautiful one coming up now.
In Shelbyville?
We're going to be relocating our technology center.
Really?
So, yes.
That's
Did a
wonderful.
groundbreaking about a month or so ago.
Oh, congratulations. I
Thank
didn't
you
know
very
that.
much. Yes, we are
Very
very
good.
excited about the
Yeah.
program. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
We just did a great Solari report, and we did it. I do a show on CHD TV called Financial Rebellion with Michael Schumann, who is one of the leading, he's an attorney, he's the leading expert on financing local investment, how to use your IRA to do local investment. It's very interesting stuff, and you can get it on CHD TV or on the Solari Report. And he's got a new book about, you know, how to use self-directed IRAs to do local investment. One thing I would love to see is more and more, either probably the chamber is the right place to do it, could be the Rotary. You get a group of businesses together and say, how can we put together, you know, set up our 401ks and our retirement funds for the businesses who have them, and set it up so that a portion can be rolled over into local investment. And there are multiple local investment options you could put together. One of the things I would love to see is venture pools for, you know, that are limited to a local area, because I think having that money available, if you read, I'll give you a copy of this great memo that Richard Warner just wrote on a sovereign bank for Tennessee.
Yes.
But one of the things he points out is that the more local community banks and credit unions you have, the more local financial institutions you have, the stronger small business community you have. Having that baseline of literate, you know, financial people who are looking to, you know, create opportunity in a place, it's really a multiplier. And that's why you want to protect your local banks.
Yeah, we have great local shops, a pool of local banks.
Right.
We've got a couple of great local processors.
Yes.
So we are, you know, we're pretty much
Shelbyville's
on
very
the move.
strong.
Yeah,
I
very.
mean, your problem with Shelbyville is everybody wants what you have and they're coming.
They're coming. They're here. They're
Right.
coming.
Right.
Yeah, very good. Very good. This has been a very interesting conversation. Yes, we could go on and on and on and on, but it's very important that we take grip on what's happening and take back some control. You know, I'm the crazy lady that thinks there's always someone monitoring or zooming in on what we're doing, whether it
There is.
the mysterious balloons that's flying around, or
Yeah.
you know, it's the Google camera up there. And
Well, but let me explain why. There's a great book review we did, and you can find it on Solari. It's called AI Superpowers.
okay,
So our world is in the process of getting wrecked by AI and software. And you're right, everybody is surveillance. Everybody wants
Yes.
more data.
Yes.
If you look at how AI works, the AI that's the most successful is not the one that has the best software developers. It's the one that has most data. So the AI learns by just crunching data. And so the more data you can get, there's literally a giant sucking sound of people trying to get, you know, data on everything
Oh, yeah.
to make their AI smarter.
Yeah.
That's going to go on for a while. It's going to get worse. So
yeah, it's frightening. Is what it is.
use cash.
You can use cash. Yeah. What's your slogan? Make cash great again.
Make cash great again. Or we also do cash every day. And
Yeah.
what's interesting is I can't tell you how many wonderful stories. Can I just tell
Sure.
a little bit more?
Sure.
I don't. So we started this thing. We started with Cash Friday. And then we started cash. It got real popular in cash every day. But what we discovered was when people used cash, they started talking to their local business people. And as they talked to them, they would create a kind of relationship, and they would discover other opportunities, other things they could do with the local people, the businesses that they patronized or used, and they would find incredible opportunities, and things would start to happen. And I'll never forget somebody writing me and saying, I just talked to my local dry cleaner, and he says he loses $2,500 a month to credit card fees. And so if we all just pay him cash, he makes another $2,500.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of merchants are now giving discounts for cash.
Yeah. Very
So you just wouldn't believe the stories.
Yeah.
So
Good incentive. Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you. It's an honor to have a conversation with you. I've been researching, I've been watching and reading. Very interesting stuff, and certainly want to give means and ways where individuals can get to you on your website, copies.
So our website is solari.com, and
Okay.
you can find everything there. We're a subscription service. We have a tremendous amount of things for free.
Yeah.
So don't be concerned that
Yeah.
you won't get the benefit of it.
Yeah. There's a lot of information on this lady, so you're very incredible. Again, your accreditations it's just huge, all of the things that you're involved with. So you're just making a big difference, and we appreciate it.
What I'm involved with is so overwhelming that I feel stupid most of the time.
Not always like that, but thank you again. You flew in from the Netherlands?
I was in. I'm a Dutch resident, so I spend a fair amount of time in the Netherlands. But I just came. My bank, believe it or not, is outside of Pennsylvania. I have cousins who have a bank there.
Okay.
So I came in and I spent time with them, and then I flew down. My house is in Harlem, and we had a big event over in Grand Junction. I don't know if you've ever been to it's the Bird Dog Museum. We have the champion. In Grand Junction, we have annually the Bird Dog Championships, and everybody flies in anyway. We've got a museum. So we had a big event over the Bird Dog, and then I was staying with friends in Memphis, and then I drove over here to Shelbyville. I'm a big fan of Shelbyville. It's a wonderful place.
It is. It's
Yeah.
growing. Every time you come back, you were here last year, I'm sure you can see a big difference on what's going on.
Yeah, I see more and more Solari Report subscribers moving here.
Yes, lots of rooftops. So
Yeah.
we're on the move. Thank you.
Yeah.
It is Catherine Austin Fitz. Of course, information on the screen. You can jump right to that website. Lots and lots of information. Of course, that's another segment of Maryland and Company. Thank you so much for watching.